So with the Expendables 3 coming out this weekend, I thought it'd be a really good time to review Expendables 1. That is a horrible Sylvester Stallone impersonation. I'm sorry for that. I will try to redeem myself with a better Schwarzenegger impersonation.
So with the Expendables 3 coming out this weekend, I thought it'd be a good time to get a few pumps in, watch the Expendables 1, and do a review about it.
Slightly better. Alright, the Expendables 1. Now, this is a series that is not for everyone. This is a throwback to 80s action movies with the cheesy dialogue, plots that are just like getting from one character to another so that they can kill a bunch of people, huge explosions, and acting that won't win anybody an Oscar. If that is not your cup of tea, stay away from this movie at all costs and the entire series. But if you do enjoy those kinds of movies, you probably will get some kind of enjoyment out of these movies if you've never seen them before. And if you like the actors as well, Sylvester Stallone, Jason Statham, Jet Li, Bruce Willis, to an extent, Mickey Rourke, there's a good crew here. And I think that this movie exists, and this series exists, because Sylvester Stallone wanted to work with a bunch of action stars, and he's getting, near the end of his career. He's 68, I believe now. He's almost 70, and when he started this, he was about, mid-60s, and it's impressive to see how well built all of these guys are. It's mostly an older crew of actors getting together and, kind of rehashing some of their, old characters to a degree of just, kicking a lot of ass. And it doesn't matter how old you are, but man, Stallone looks the part. He is crazy ripped. If I could be in that good of shape now, I would be happy. This guy is like 35 years older than I am, and he looks amazing. He's got a six-pack. There's dedication there. Anyway, the storyline here is not all that amazing. It's a bunch of mercenaries led by Sylvester Stallone, working to take out a drug lord played by Eric Roberts and his second-hand man, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, Eric Roberts actually did a pretty good job as a sleazy, cocaine dealer who, not a cocaine dealer in the sense that he's the one that supplies everyone, so he's like this rich snob that comes into this country and just basically takes it over. And he did a really good job, I thought. I really, despised his character, I enjoyed despising his character because he was so, he was such a douchebag, but so classy at the same time. So I really enjoyed that. But it's a bunch of mercenaries working together. And what I like about this is that the characters really work well off each other. They bounce off of each other and work really well. And the best two is Jason Statham and Sylvester Stallone. They get the most screen time in this movie and throughout the series pretty much. And they just work so well off each other. You can almost feel as if they're actual buddies in real life, and I'm sure at this point they are. I'd actually really like to see a movie with just two of them together, kind of like, working as two investigators together, or two mercenaries, or two hitmen, kind of maybe like bullet to the head, but just Sylvester Stallone and Jason Statham. I think that would have been enjoyable. Anyway, what I also like Sylvester Stallone more in this movie than the sequel, the second one, Expendables 2, because he kind of had a little bit more fun with it. There's comedy in the sequel as well, but Stallone's expressions worked really well in this movie. There's a few instances where it's just his face, what he does with his face. There's one part where he and Mickey Rourke are talking to Jason Statham, and Mickey Rourke's like saying that he's going to put like a tattoo on his head, and he's trying to explain what he's going to do, and he keeps looking to Stallone for like encouragement, and Stallone's just like, he doesn't say anything, but he's just like, yeah, he just kind of agrees, but it's just, they go over to Stallone just to kind of show him going, like, agreeing, but his face is I don't know, it just worked really well. Another scene is when Stallone saves Statham at one point, and Statham's like, you could have killed me, you're crazy, and he's like, you're welcome, and then Statham's just like, ugh, and Stallone just takes it up a notch and goes like, he just does, his facial expressions were perfect in this movie. There's a few instances like that, and I just really, really enjoyed them, and I wish that would have carried over into the sequel. The action is, it's a bunch of guys getting together with gigantic muscles, like Terry Crews is just gigantic. And there's good action sequences. They're all trained mercenaries, so they all have guns and weapons, but this is, a throwback to the 80s movie. So obviously there's going to be a bunch of action parts where it's just, hand-to-hand combat. And Couture, whenever he does that, he's just throwing people around as if he was really in the UFC. It's awesome. It's entertaining to watch. There's Stone Cold Steve Austin, an ex-wrestler, fake wrestling, but he's still fighting Couture, and there's like the UFC versus the wrestler thing. Stallone takes on Steve Austin. There's Jet Li. I wish the Jet Li they would have showed a little bit more with his character, because he can do a lot of crazy stunts. And the second one, he's barely in the movie, which is unfortunate. But at least he had some parts in this movie, and he's actually pretty funny too. Dolph Lundgren is actually really entertaining in this movie, possibly more so the sequel. But I just really enjoyed all the characters, the mesh of them together. What I didn't like about this movie, other than it's not an amazing plot, but it felt a little bit rushed at certain instances. There's a scene where they're in a church and there's three characters meeting up together, and that apparently they only had like 4 hours to film it. So I mean, it's understandable that it feels a little bit rushed at some points, and the pacing is a little bit off throughout the movie. But for the most part, it's definitely watchable, and that's another thing that this movie has, is the rewatchability. You can just, if you want to zone out and just kind of watch a movie and relax and not have to think about anything, plop in the Expendables. But there's also a lot of CGI blood, and there's a lot of cheap CGI in this. Sometimes the blood looks okay, but other times it's just like and like when they stab somebody, they use a lot of CGI and it doesn't look real at all. Or some of the explosions as well. And I'm like, I wish they would have had a little bit of a bigger budget. It would have been nice to see the Expendables with like a budget that Michael Bay has, because Michael Bay is a horrible, horrible director. His action scenes are sometimes good, but that's because of the CGI crew that's actually doing it, not necessarily Michael Bay's directing at all. Has nothing to do with that. So I would have loved to have seen what Stallone could have done with that kind of, a budget and the crew that Michael Bay has to create CGI. I think that would have just been phenomenal. And people coming and saying, okay, we can do this, we have this kind of budget, we can do this kind of explosion, this kind of stunt. It could have been really awesome. So that's my only complaint, is that I wish that they would have done a little bit better with the CGI work. But yeah, straight up, it's a throwback to the 80s action movies. If that wasn't your thing back then, this won't be it now. But if you are a fan of it, I think you'll enjoy it. And I will give it a 7 out of 10. It is a damn good guilty pleasure and a man's kind of movie. Women as well, if you like that kind of stuff. But it's a bunch of men, just testosterone flowing everywhere. So thank you all for watching. Speaking of testosterone, you've been bearded in. Beardage.